Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NB3 Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Mike David, and today I have Justin Harris with me. He's one of the higher level coaches in the industry, all the way from soccer moms and lifestyle clients to measly NPC competitors like myself, and all the way up to the Olympia level, such as Brandon Curry. I was going to do the whole introduction thing and list off all your background, but there's so many things, and I know I'm going to get something wrong. So maybe you want to give a little bit of an introduction for yourself.
Well, it's what have you done for me lately? I'll focus on the new stuff. I mean, I've done a bunch of stuff. I played sports growing up. I football in college. I am proud of this. That's why I bring it up. But I was inducted to my college athletic hall of fame in 2024, but for bodybuilding, I won Mr. Michigan, Junior USA's, and then powerlifting, I won the Michigan 2 years in a row. And then I've been coaching forever. I own Troponin Nutrition, Troponin Supplements, which is our supplement company. And what I'm most proud of that I think will be the long-term growth of the company is Troponin IQ, which is our AI system.
Yeah, I've actually been using Troponin IQ every day, especially because I feel bad bothering you with questions all the time and stuff. So it's cool how it answers as you.
I have a quick question. Do you use it on desktop or on your phone?
I do both, but I try most like when I'm around the computer, I'll use the desktop for sure.
Can I do this? We can edit this out if we have to, or go over, or I'll do this as freebie time. Because there's so many extra tools and stuff, and it's hard as the developer because I don't know how people are using it. I just found out from my wife, she had no idea about trope tools, about IQ skills, about the schedule, about the blog, or about projects, about Supervault, about the free lecture courses, about the free ebooks, and I don't think the brain view. And there's a whole bunch of things that I need to make the site more navigable because people just go, because it opens to chat once you've been logged in. But there's so right now, there's like $600 in free ebooks to if you subscribe to Troponin IQ, you make your money's worth just staying subscribed. We've launched a $300 lecture course for free only to Troponin IQ subscribers. My new Power Bodybuilding Bro Split book, I'm selling for $60. We sold like 70 copies of it. And it's for free. If you're a Troponin, Critical Mass is free. Power Bodybuilding PPL is free. You get 20% off so there's a bunch of stuff that I'm really bad about marketing, but.
Yeah, I could understand. I feel like that probably is a good thing because that means you're getting people coming in from all over the place, not necessarily like one funnel.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if the end goal is to get them all to Troponin IQ, then that's cool. But if not, then it's probably pretty decent that you don't have those extra resources.
Yeah. Well, I won't hijack this into a business interview, but it is part of the problem is that Troponin IQ is great for people like you who are asking bodybuilding questions because that's what most of it's trained on. It's trained on what I coach, And so I'm learning from people checking, like the guys that ask that, want to work with me as a coach, they're getting good answers. But people will go on, they don't know how to use AI. They'll ask for things I don't ever do. And so lately I've been doing a lot of training. I call it GRASS training. It's generally recognized as safe. And so it's in areas where I might not have real deep coverage. I find like the textbooks I appreciated or liked or research articles that I thought were really good. And I'm adding those to those areas and saying, if there's no pure Justin knowledge that covers this area or it's not deep enough, this is generally recognized as safe. Because there's also a lot of things that I know that I don't have an opinion on, like I don't know, whether you're RH positive or RH negative, that doesn't ever come up in coaching. I know what, RH factor is, and it's a really weird one if you really get into it, like why we have that. But someone might ask that someday. And so that's the other hard thing. To go back to what I was saying is I almost like to keep it under the radar for now until I've built it to where I know that none of those things can happen.
Yeah, I can tell it's made a lot of improvements too, because I kind of learned my lesson on exactly what you're talking about probably a few months ago when I first started using it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I asked it something like, do all the calories that we eat go towards technically instead of like going towards force generation? Do they go towards the phosphorylation of ADP or whatever? And it was like, listen, that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, Mike.
That's
but if you
funny. It should know that. I'm glad you said that. I need to get better. I need to get a group of clients that use it and that they're going to test it to the extreme like that and find, because it should know that. but thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Um, all right, so on to the bodybuilding and coaching stuff.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, there's like a whole bunch of things that you're known for, obviously, but I think there's really three main things in the coaching industry, at least, that you kind of have a reputation for. It would be your aggressive carb cycling approach, the
Hmm.
post-show rebound, and putting size on guys and
Hmm.
taking them from like middleweight to light
Hmm.
heavyweight, whatnot. I'm in the rebound right now, so I do kind of want to talk about that, but I know the topic of high days and all that is going to come up. So maybe for the audience, it might make more sense to discuss like what your philosophy is on carb cycling in general first.
Okay, so I'm a physicist. My master's degree in physics. I publish papers in physics, and so thermodynamics is near and dear to my heart because it governs the whole universe. I was an engineer for a while also, and if you're in engineering, it all comes down to heat also. Everything comes down to energy in versus energy out, and our bodies are no different. So we eat energy from food, calories, and we burn calories. And there's, and that difference is whether we store energy or burn energy. So if we burn more calories than we eat, we lose that caloric energy from the body and vice versa. But different than like a light bulb or a car, which is a single energy source, gasoline or electricity, we have three forms. We ingest protein, carbs, and fats, and we store muscle protein, all kinds of other proteins. We store proteins, carbohydrates as glycogen, and then fat as body fat. And so we have some wiggle room. And so if you remember like those like puzzle games on your phone or something, where you have to like stack things in a certain order back and forth, and it looks like it's not going to work, or any of those brain puzzles where it's like at first glance it doesn't look like it'll work, but if you maneuver it this way, you get like this little freebie thing. It ends up working. And so that's the basis of it, is that we deplete, like the fat loss portion is the easiest to explain. So I'll just do that. When you're in the fat loss portion during the week, when the calories are lower and carbs are lower, you're burning fat and losing muscle glycogen. That lost muscle glycogen is energy we can restore without storing fat. It still is excess calories that we store on the body, just rather than storing them as fat, we store them as glycogen. And that can only happen when you've created a glycogen depleted state, which we're doing, yada, yada. And so that's what we do. We cycle the carbs up really high that day, and we eat more calories than we burn. So we do store, but we're eating carbohydrates in a glycogen state, depleted state, so we store them as glycogen preferentially. That upregulates thyroid function, brings your glycogen stores back up, so your strength is up, so your energy output, your calorie output at all training and cardio is higher, and then it also kind of minimizes very minimally some of the appetite stuff that happens from glycogen in a carb in a calorie depleted state.
And so I know a lot of coaches will do like training days and non-training days. I know what you do, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but so how do you go about it? You do low and high days or
I
medium
do,
days as
yeah,
well?
that's basically what I do. So at its core, I am doing that because you have your medium days, which would be like a training day. And then if you can kind of follow the process and say you're doing the training days and off days. Well, now let's say you want to like amplify the off days a little bit more. So you take carbs a little bit lower to kind of force the glycogen depletion. And then on one of those training days, you put all those carbs that day. That's basically a high day. So we just kind of, we're still bound by conservation of energy, and we have the ebb and flow, and everyone's already thinking the same process by adding a little more carbs and calories on training day because you burn more. We just add like a further little hijack. We're still stuck in conservation of energy, but we manipulate the macronutrients a little bit more, so we get a little more glycogen depleted on low days, which allow us to push more carbs at the same net caloric intake across the week on the other days.
Basically, what you're doing is just being more aggressive on the non-training day, and then on once some of those other coaches where they're not doing so aggressively, they might
Mhm.
implement like a refeed here and there or a cheat meal, in which case
Mm.
you kind of have that programmed in every week on a high day.
Yeah, and if you look at the mix, because my high days are very low fat protein sources and no added fats. So you can kind of picture a state if you took someone who has training days and non-training days, and say they took those non-training days and cut the carbs in half, or whatever, just for an easy number, and set those aside. And you have two of those a week, so you have one full low day worth of carbs, whether it's 200, 300 grams, whatever that is. You have that set to the side already, 200 grams. And then I say, because I'm taking fat so low, I have those extra calories also. So carbs are a little bit higher there, also say another 100 or 200. So that's like 400 free grams of carbs. I just throw them all on that high day. And then if you look at that, then the macros work out that what I'm doing isn't really, it's not any different caloric wise. It can't be, because we're still bound by conservation. Any coach, When they're in prep and you're losing fat, has to have you at a deficit. Any coach, when you're growing over a long enough time period, you can add muscle in a deficit, but you can't add body mass. To add total calories on the body, it has to add more calories. So when you're growing, you have to eat more. When you're dieting, you have to eat less. We're all doing the same thing. I just add like a further, like a second level of thermodynamic hacking into it, which everyone's already doing by the training and non-training days. I just twist it a little further.
And on those real high days, you have the last meal as an optional cheat as well, which I think personally, I like it a lot because I think with the people who don't take that approach, the person's going to eventually cheat anyway, right?
Yeah,
So,
well, exactly. And here's what you have to do. I'm not coaching robots. If I was coaching robots, if this is 100 years in the future, and the only jobs humans have is coaching AI robots who want to get in shape now, that wouldn't be an option because they're not human. They don't have the emotion. They don't have the hunger pangs. And so, but humans are different. And over a long enough time period, over a contest prep, 16 weeks, it will make a difference. But I put my free meals or my cheat meals as the last meal of the day on high day, which sounds crazy, but it's not, because again, over the course of the week, we're still bombed by the same total calories. Wherever you put that cheat meal, my cheat meal ends up usually being lower calorie because it's the last meal of the day. You've had really high carbs all day. So your cravings are the lowest they'll be all week. Your stomach's the fullest it'll be all week. And you have to go to sleep after. It's the last meal of the day. So you can't stretch it into a 10-hour cheat meal. And so it's really like I'm making a small concession in that it's not my favorite spot I'd ever put one, all things being equal, but that's offset by the fact that you're more likely to cheat less, less severely, make better choices with your cheat because you're not as hungry. So a lot of times that cheat turns into a steak and rice rather than, ribs and cheese fries or something. And then also it kind of almost blocks those 10-hour gorge fasts. I've lost it. I went crazy for the whole day cheating. If you have a cheat meal on meal one, it's hard to go back to chicken and broccoli for meal two.
yeah, I've found that the whole carb cycling approach, especially with the cheat meal, has been so beneficial for me ever since I started working with you. Because before that, you know how it gets. Like when you're deep into a prep or a diet or whatever, it's just like you start going on the computer, your brain start tricking you into
Mm-hmm.
Googling, like, are refeeds beneficial?
Mm-hmm.
If you have that already programmed into the diet to look forward to, it's like, it's just so easy to just be like, I don't have to worry about this. Friday night, I get my meal and that's it.
Yeah, and I've just done it long enough that I realized when you know the cheat meal's coming, the other 6 days of the week, you're already thinking, well, I can suffer. I'm hurting today. I want this so bad. I don't, you kind of get that breaking point, but it's like, in 24 hours is my cheat meal or whatever. And then also knowing you have it, you kind of think about it during the week. So you just don't have those crazy splurges. Like when guys go and order like 8 Big Macs, and 4 fries, and they do like 8,000 calories in one meal. That's, 8,000 calorie meal is a big impact no matter what time of day you have it. Where I'm replacing a high day meal, which is already like 1,000-gram meal or 1,000-calorie meal. So if you eat a 2,000 calorie meal, which is almost a whole large pizza, you're only 1,000 calories above what we already were planning. So it's not where the other meal like would be an 8,000 calorie cheat above what was planned.
Yeah, so your strategy over the course of a month, you'll put on maybe a pound of fat, whereas the other one, you'll put on 2 pounds in the first
In
meal,
one
basically.
cheat, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I work with humans, not robots, and you can try to do the opposite, and maybe one client will do, but even your most robotic clients have a death in the family, have a divorce, or there's our lives just aren't perfect, and so I'm saying you don't have to be perfect, and we plan for it, and then because of that, you actually tend to be closer to perfect anyways.
Yeah, and even in a worst case scenario, like an emergency, like you just said, like while it's obviously not ideal to put the meal on a different day or whatever, like you have room in the week technically.
It's the
If it
calories are already assumed. Yeah, they're already implied in the plan. Yeah, a range. Kind of a rough. I'm already kind of expecting that there's roughly 1,000 extra calories, which is fairly safe because a whole large pizza is that for like the amount of calories you're eating on high day, you got to eat a whole large pizza to go 1,000 calories over for that meal because then the planned meal was big meal anyways, and so we can buffer that, and that's on average. A lot of times, I don't know how many times, probably early in the prep, you were just doing steak and rice, and so it's really only like we only get like 4 to 6 crazy cheats to worry about, and planning those and minimizing those is a bigger impact than just pretending they aren't going to happen and then having a guy blow it at 10 days out.
Yeah, in my 16-week prep, I actually don't even think I was taking a cheat until I was maybe like 6 or 7 weeks out, and then I was just making, like, Kodiak cakes,
Yeah,
pancakes, and
yeah.
stuff like that, so
And see, it's crazy because it doesn't make sense when you're not in prep because it seems weird. But if I've done enough times to know, because for 10 years I didn't plan cheats at all, to know that if you would not have made it to 6 weeks out without really having cravings, because it's like as soon as you can't have it, it's already, when you know, like as soon as I say you can have the cheat meal, a lot of clients are like, "Are you sure about this?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't have to have it, but it's there." And as soon as you say that, they're like, I don't want it that bad. I'll wait till I really want it. And it's so, it just time and time again, it's proven to me that my net unplanned calories over the course of a prep are lower with this than any other approach I've taken.
yeah. I actually wanted to talk about something with the high days. You allow up to half of the carbs in each meal from sugary sources like fruits
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Is there a reason specifically that you implement that?
Twofold. One, if you're eating 1,000 grams of carbs of that day and half are sugary, you're still eating 500 grams of complex carbs. That's still a lot. So we're not getting like peaks and valleys. You know, you're eating 6 times several hundred calories minimum of complex carbs, and we just spread sugars in there. So there is kind of the first thought is that insulin spiked all day anyways, and we're probably using insulin. So insulin's already spiked. So any concern about sugar and insulin spikes is kind of out the door because one, we want that. Two, we're amplifying it. And three, great, we have 6 insulin spikes. We're eating, that's a lot of, that's, you even those spikes out 6 times over an 18-hour window for when each of them are 6-hour spikes, you just get a flat peak. You don't get spikes. And so that's the other thing. And the other thing is also, I found that you end up with the same calories, the same carb count, pretty much the same, blood sugar stability because of those complex carbs. And it's another thing because when guys are eating fruit and juice and some cereal, they don't want to cheat either. So another way, it was like it reduced the cheat and it didn't impact. It was the exact same diet calorie wise. And really, you don't have to do the sugary stuff, but I try. It's not like I just guessed or fell upon this. I've been doing this since the 90s. I used to have guys try to eat 1,000 grams of rice. It wasn't working. The guys get GI distress. They weren't getting the carbs in. This simple switch now, everyone gets high days in. Everyone grows.
Yeah, I find it also useful for me because I know last year, appetite and digestion became a bottleneck for me, and we ended up having to
Hmm.
call the off season at one point
Hmm.
because of other stressors too. But I'm making that a major focus this year, and I definitely want fruits in my diet and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and
one other question I would
that's a
have
good
is,
point. You said good. I want to clarify. You said fruits, and that's not something I force or specify, but I have noticed pretty clearly, and it makes sense obviously when you think about it. The clients who use their sugar carbs from fruits, pineapple, grapes, blueberries, things like that, for most of their sugar, do better than the ones who just do sugar or processed sugar. Calorie wise, they're really the same, but there's just digestion seems to be better. Inflammation's obviously lower. So I prefer like fruit-based foods for those sugary sources.
and then plus you're getting a lot of those micronutrients and some fiber and things like that, which is
Hmm.
good to an extent, obviously. Is there a reason you don't implement that on medium or low days? Is it about glycemic control or
Yeah,
something like that? Or
it's really just the calories are the carbs. No single macro is high enough where we can kind of play with it. In my mind, carbs are getting up there, but we kind of already do because we do the field rations, we do the intra workout, which is a different carb source. So it's more just that the carbs aren't high enough that I feel comfortable that you're going to have a stable blood sugar level, and then the food's not. I will do it like if a guy is having really bad appetite issues and can't even get medium day down. I'll sometimes say, yeah, let's do 25% sugary carbs. But I don't believe it's ideal at that point. I think with the high day, there's not only zero drop off, and there's zero drop off like theoretically as far as the actual nutrition, and I think there's actually a bonus in the way that it reduces the cheat meal intake and kind of the mental aspect. But I don't think you get that on medium days. So that's really, again, I coach humans, but we're treating you like a human doesn't help us. I treat you like a robot, I guess.
yeah, that was actually I was that guy last year with the medium days. It's funny
Yeah.
because I know I'm is probably up there a little bit compared to maybe other people my size, but
Yeah, your
so
metabolism, like It's just does. It's like, oh, you added food. You added 100 calories. Let me burn off 99.9 grams of those calories of those instantly.
Yeah, we had 3 high days last off season. Medium days were freaking but yeah, it's funny how, like, during the rebound last year I don't wanna make this too much about myself, I'm just trying to make a point about the medium days and whatnot, but
Well,
the
people,
medium
people,
days were actually the
I
best.
would, I would disagree. People, it'll be more interesting when you're talking about yourself, and that's all people care about.
Great, even better. So last year during the rebound, as food climbed up, maybe not in the first week or two, but as food got higher and the hunger was still insane, the medium days were actually the most fun for me. Because like high days are great and all because you have all that fruit and whatever, but the medium days were like so much food volume because it's
Yeah,
all rice.
yeah,
And then in the off season, the medium days suck the worst because no
worse.
appetite.
There's no insulin spike to help get that food through you. It just sits there like a rock. Yeah, medium days are always the worst. They're the hardest to play with because they really are kind of the optimal base day. Like the high day only works because of the low day. The medium day works no matter what. It's a good mix of, good fats, good carbohydrate mix. We put more carbs around training. So it really is just too well put of a day to change much, but that's always as guys get bigger, medium days get harder and harder to get down food wise.
That's why I'm making my digestion like a major priority this year. I'm doing sauerkraut and kimchi, kombucha every day, vegetables, fruit, oats, and all that stuff. And just like being mindful of how much avocado or oats I eat and things like that. So I'm not going too high on the FODMAP and whatnot.
Yep. One thing on
So
that
hopefully,
that I want to say for digestion, not necessarily for you, but if you start noticing you're getting like a distension, if anyone out there is noticing that, protein is really kind of dry. It doesn't require as much water in the colon. And if you've ever talked to anyone who went on the carnivore diet, how they get diarrhea at the start, which seems crazy, it's because the body's still putting water in the colon like it used to need when you had the carbs. So when we go on a fat loss diet and crank protein up, your gut is chronically dehydrated. And then when you add growth hormone, it does the same thing. And so you get permanent less than 100% removal, of waste basically. And so, that'll affect digestion and stuff also, but you can kind of fight through that, but it does the distension you can't. What I recommend for that is osmolaric laxatives like Dulcolax or Miralax. They're not true laxatives. Miralax increases mucus production in the colon to kind of keep everything lubed up, and Dulcolax does that. And Miralax is I think it's actually propylethylene glycol, maybe, but it's like it increases water transfer into the colon. So if you're noticing, yeah, there you go, perfect. Yeah, if you're noticing any of that,
uh, uh,
it's what is the ingredient? Is it
uh,
PEG?
polyethylene glycol,
Poly, yeah,
polyethylene glycol.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it'll be glycol because that's like
Um,
water that pulls water or whatever.
I was using Miralax for the last like 4 weeks of my prep, probably just because everything was so dried out, and I was getting
Yeah,
some. I was having issues with, and I couldn't really dial it down to what was causing it, other than just being in prep, maybe all the stimulants and the
yeah.
orals and
Oh, the stimulants are not, yeah, and all of those, yeah, everything we do. And I'm not saying this like a guaranteed this will prevent distension, but from having enough time in the sport to my best understanding of why guys get the GH gut, it's not GH, it's related to basically that, the gut drying out. The GH does cause that, but and so part of it is some guys are just hyper responsive to that water. It's a lot of guys that get the really bad carpal tunnel because because that's compression of the nerve due to the water movement, the compartmentalization of the water. So if you're someone who's hypersensitive to the GH hands, you might want to be ready with some Miralax or Doclax, just always on hand.
there's. Yeah, I've heard you talk about that before, actually, too, regarding your opinion on the GH gut. I guess it's and other things that dry out the gut, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, you can look at acromegalics, like Andre the Giant, people with pituitary tumors that have excessive. You can see tons of photos. Shrek was designed based on Maurice Tillman, the French angel, which was like a 1950s wrestler with acromegaly. And so he wasn't even tall. He just got it after being a fully formed adult. And you'll see they don't have the distension. They have some of the other symptoms we see with bodybuilders, like turnip thighs when guys lose their quad sweep and their adductors get enormous. I think that's related to the nerve compression through the outer quad. When a lot of guys lose their triceps, I think that's related to nerve compression. You'll see the brachioradialis, like right this whole Whereas this whole muscle
Yep.
will just disappear on a lot of guys. I think Branch Warren and Jay Cutler are and that's very like that could be like spot injections. I'm not saying that for either of them, but I think it's also more likely that that's nerve compression from the GH, and you'll get like a wider rib cage structure, but they don't get distension. That's not like the widening of the torso and the rib cage is a part of acromegaly, but like turtle shell gut isn't. That's a byproduct of the only people on earth who eat enough calories to. I mean, because fat guys will have that, but they're also fat. You ever when you've seen a guy with a huge beer gut, it looks like they have ascites, they probably have that also. They just also have a ton of body fat. The only case you're ever going to get where someone has eaten enough food to have enough bowel movements that didn't completely pass to distend an entire midsection and also not be fat is going to be a bodybuilder.
It makes sense too because anytime I wake up with GI issues right out during prep, I would always notice that, especially like my upper abs were just so hard to pull in and it just looked horrible.
Hmm.
And I was running 3.3 IUs of GH and not enough to be causing any type of
Yeah, well, you never know. It's just
chronic thing.
that's the genetic thing with everything. Everyone responds differently to everything. I've never had GH hands. I never had that at all. Carpal tunnel. I could take. I don't even know what the limit would be, but I'm pretty sure I could take like 30 IUs a day and be just fine. I could write papers. Other people take 3 IUs and can't make a fist. So everything's just so genetic. Some like you see with cycles. Some guys do pretty crazy cycles and don't look that great, and then people would be shocked to see some of the cycles I've seen on elite bodybuilders because it's just like any other sport. Like LeBron James wouldn't need to take as many steroids to get good at basketball as me, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny how everybody like, look how much gear that guy's on. It's like if it was that easy, then everybody would just be sticking a needle in their ass and they'd look bigger. So,
Well, it's a
it doesn't
very
work.
simple, it's a very tried and true system. Everyone has the same system of measurement. Is that guy bigger than me? If yes, he takes too much. He takes a lot of gear. Is that guy smaller than me? I don't care. If he's bigger than me by default, that's funny. If you're natural, anybody bigger than you is on steroids, and if you're on steroids, anybody bigger than you is on. Oh, he's on everything. That dude's on a ton of shit. I can tell.
Yep. On the topic of the rebound, I guess. So we can use myself as an example since we're going through the post-show rebound right now. And I know there's going to be some nuance based on the
Mm.
person's physiology and
And
what their
yeah,
class they're in and their weight
back
cap.
to
And
back to Troponin IQ. I was not prepared for how hard that nuance was to train because a computer wants orders and templates and spreadsheets, and it's like I thought I was all scientific there. You don't realize how many things are basically by feel because you've just done it a million times.
I can imagine, yeah, because you have to create a system that can answer everybody base. It's got to be
Yeah,
difficult to have that many data points.
yeah.
Um, So, all right. So you have a guy like me, scrawny, 175-pound stage weight with a weight cap of 194, 19 pounds to fill out my weight cap. I just stepped off stage. So what's your approach there? Where do you go with a guy like me? What do we do?
Kind of a default for everyone is the night of the show and the day after. Go ahead and eat. Enjoy your friends and family. Eat whatever you want. Get it out of your system. And then, but by that point, you've had 36 hours of picking out. We should be able to put some structure back in the diet. And I'm not going to ask you to eat. I don't reverse diet. I keep calories high. I don't like reverse dieting unless you're already like a seasoned pro and you're not going to get anything out of a rebound. You only get maybe 2 or 3 rebounds. So if you've had 3 legit badass rebounds, well, if you've had 3 legit badass rebounds, you're already you're big enough that you're not looking to add 40 more pounds. If you have 3 20-pound rebounds, that's 60 pounds. It's that thing's over. But assuming you're like a newer competitor, we're going to do your basically high days, and how many it'll be like from 3 to 5. I think you probably had 5 high days. I don't remember. Did you have 5 in a
Yep.
row? Yeah. Guys with good metabolism will
Yeah.
get like 5 in a row. So you went a full week to like basically show day, and the next day are like eat whatever you want, 5 high days, and then we're into an off-season diet. A smaller person might get 3 high days, and a lot of females only get 2. That's
S-
it. Simple. I just jump right like you get 36 hours to be a human, and if you want this sport to be what you do, and you want to go all the way, that you those are your 36 hours. We're back to work after that.
It's funny too, like, I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't have some fun on the night of the show, obviously, but I had some cookies and a couple donuts and things like that, but, it's interesting, I wasn't nearly as hungry on show day as I expected, probably because
Hmm.
of all the dehydration, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's also like I think there's just so much emotion with, and I hate saying emotion. It's not like we're emotional people. There's just like the state you're in mentally. You're just so hyper motivated, that you kind of don't want to go like crazy. And I think take advantage of that. Like yeah, you want to eat and you want to pig out, but you're so motivated and to make new progress after a show. It goes back to that's the same reason I put the cheat meal in every week. Same reason why I put it is just like, little things like because I could tell if I told you we're right back on the diet, off season starts the second you get off stage, you're going to be, thinking about those cookies or whatever. And where I give you 36 free hours, most people don't even go that crazy because they're, it's like I know if I need it, it's there. So yeah, but that's the process basically. Get 36 hours, get all the junk out of your system, and then a chunk of high days to kind of fill you out, and then we start growing from there. And we'll do almost guaranteed a 4 week rebound. Uh, it doesn't, there's not like a shut, like a closed door shut of it. It's basically after 4 weeks, most people aren't really getting those rebound progress anymore. They're not jumping up in weight, not jumping up in strength. Their fullness is kind of maxed out. Some people extend to 6 weeks, but that's what we do. We basically, so it's really like 5 weeks of rebound because that first week is kind of all those high days. And then we do basically 4 weeks of rebound, maybe an extra week if we get it. And then I recommend for most people that would be the time they drop to cruise and do TRT or and get blood work. I'm sorry.
It's actually said about the 2 or 3 rebounds max that most people get because I've heard you say that. That was one of the topics I had written down I wanted to talk about. Would you say that's because on so much mass through a successful rebound that they're just at a capacity in their response, or is there like some physiological factor where your body like defense mechanism?
Yes and no, but I'll use it. I think the best case would be an example. People know Paul Barnett. A lot of people follow him, Anabolic Bodybuilding. He did his first show with us at 171, I think. I believe 3 rebounds later, he competed at 270. It's there's
Jesus.
just you're just out of room. Like if you do them properly, David Lamartina did the same thing. He would compete at 181, and then after his, I think probably his third rebound, he was 305 in the off season. Ben Pollock did a classic show at 181, and then after his second rebound, he was like 281, and I think he competed. It was not with me anymore after that, but I think he competed over 260. So like 80 pounds of stage weight after 3 rebounds. That's just, and like part of the whole genetic lottery is also that rebound. Some people would really not. They don't. People that don't have the genetics, and it sucks like to learn that. But a pretty clear indicator is if you just get really fat. If you get fat in the rebound, guys who have a chance to make it handle the rebound really well, and they get those growth spurts. Guys that don't, the guys that usually were kind of fat growing up and got into this sport because they grew up overweight, they don't seem to respond to the rebounds as well, and so they just add fat quickly. Guys with great genetics though, they come out of that rebound and they're up like 45 pounds from stage weight, if not more, still some abs, and boom, that's when we start the off season there. That's our starting point. So that's why it's just so important.
Yeah, I think we put on about 25 or 30 last year.
This
Go ahead.
time you were shredded, so you're going to get a badass rebound. That's the other thing. The rebound is inversely proportional, or yeah, like how shredded the leaner and depleted the almost if you get over diet. And Paul Barnett was that his metabolism ran away from us, and so he probably could have been almost 190 on stage when he was 171. But because of that, he had like an 80-pound rebound. He had like a just. But so it's it just works itself perfectly because the problem people have with contests is they don't get lean enough, and part of the reason is part of it's because it's so hard, but the other part is you feel small, and you don't want to get small. But the nice thing is if you can get through your brain and understand it, the way to get big is to get just fucking inside out gutted, shredded for your contest, even small, even lose muscle. Even you won't, you'll lose fullness, but those are what make careers because one, you've learned to get shredded. So even if it doesn't go perfectly for you for this show, your next show, your body has been full on stage condition before. It'll get there again much more easily. And you set yourself up for one of those like fun rebounds.
Yeah, it's sort of like a compressed spring type of deal, I
Exactly.
guess. Yeah, that was actually interesting too. That went on stage. Yeah, exactly what you said. I mean, I was small. That sucks, but I know I have a lot of room in my weight cap, so that's exciting. But they literally said, we looked at your condition and we said, holy shit. So I mean, that was good to hear.
And that sucks.
And
And but like the conditioning is the hardest part. So you have that down. So now the next time you're on stage with that same conditioning and 20 pounds more mass, it's that's a completely different look. It cracks me up when people say they're going to add 20 pounds of muscle. 20 pounds of stage weight, you don't look like the same bodybuilder. I mean, it's a new weight class. And so, but I think we're set up for that because we were really lean and it was a hard diet. And you can eat, but the only thing fighting against us is your metabolism just adapts so fast.
hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a quick second to apologize for any issues with the video quality and let you know that I did my best to re-record any of the parts where my audio cut out. And also wanted to let you know that if you want to see more guests like Justin Harris on this channel, you can help make that happen by liking, subscribing, sharing the video, and checking out my training programs, coaching plans, free ebooks, etc. at md3nutrition.com. Yeah, we pushed food really high last year, and this year we got the insulin too that I just started today. And actually, in the rebound phase, do you like to keep insulin in or grow?
Yeah, it's just less because your insulin sensitivity is so high. It works. It's just it's not full capacity. It's like I use the same analogy for everything, but it's like your insulin sensitivity is so high. That's already like the Titanic. Insulin's like adding another deck chair or another, a couple people onto it. It's like, yeah, it's bigger now, but it doesn't make a difference for. I've tried not having guys not do it in the rebound, having guys do it in the rebound, and I found I can't find any difference in end result. Meaning, like everyone's progress over the years is the same. So I figured I can't tell, so I don't explicitly recommend it anymore in the rebound. But I feel like it has to be better. But also, you lose some insulin sensitivity. It's like I try to only give clients like explicitly stated things that I feel that I can say, follow this because I know it's going to work. That's one where I don't think either won't work. It's like if you don't use insulin, your insulin sensitivity is sky high. Great, you're going to grow anyways. If you do use insulin, your insulin sensitivity is sky high. You're going to grow even better. And so but then at some future point, you might have to deal with that insulin sensitivity being lower. So. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
I really try to differentiate between I have enough data, based on knowledge of anatomy and physiology, thermodynamics, and then years of coaching to guarantee this path. That's one of those ones where it's like, man, I can't get, I've tried explicitly, I think from like 2015 to 2020, we were using insulin pretty heavily in the rebound, and those weren't my best rebounds. And so I was like, so then I think, like for the next couple of years, I said, save it for the off season. And it's like, well, those aren't my best rebounds either. And then you realize like the aberration rebounds of people who just have like those 80-pound gains, those just come and go. Those are just rare cases. And so I just can't find a data point on it. I think it's probably better, but if you don't use it, you can feel good knowing that your sensitivity is going to be a little bit higher at the end of the off season.
When you take somebody into a health phase after the rebound, do you drop GH and drop insulin or anything like that?
Yeah, I prefer to kind of just drop GH. I feel like I'm asking you for 4 weeks. I won't make you, if you can go to 400 test if you're someone who doesn't want to go all the way to true TRT, but drop to 400 test. It's not until the second week that your blood levels really go all the way down anyway. So I'm asking you to have higher testosterone levels than you did when you were 22 years old for 2 weeks for 2 weeks. That's it. And so that's kind of what I'd say. Just get it over with. Just drop to 400. Get that, because then once that blood work comes back and we're like, all right, it's good. Then all off season, it's like, let's go. Where if you just test it, if you keep GH in and some of the numbers are a little bit off, or maybe the GH adds a little bit of extra water retention, your blood pressure, just anything. And then just there's a question, it's like, was keeping a tiny bit of GH in for those 4 weeks, and then now we don't know if you're healthy enough to really hammer an off season worth it? Or I'd rather just say, good. We had 2 weeks to deal with this, got a clean bill of health. Now we got a whole off season to get fucking huge.
Yeah, man, I'm actually excited to get my blood work this year because I'm just taking so many more measures than I did last year proactively within liver and blood pressure and all those things, gut health,
I want
cardio,
to clarify on this also, because I know because people have even said this. A lot of people are afraid to get blood work, or they don't get blood work, or they think like a coach will turn them down or make them go off gear. I'll never make you go off, even if your blood work's bad. But I'll show you how to manage it, And you can fix bad numbers, but only if you know them, And so I want to always clarify that. I always forget to, because I'm sure people have been not signed on with a coach because they were afraid to get blood work and afraid the coach wouldn't work with them. No, a good coach will be able to work with any number, and it shouldn't even affect anything you do. You'll just have to, as far as your cycles, you'll just have to do certain things to make sure they don't get worse. And then you don't have to do anything. You just have to make sure you take care of the problems. It's like, it drives me crazy. Guys don't get the health markers.
Yeah, they don't even take their blood pressure. Crazy.
Yeah, it's like, don't take your blood pressure and you stay on cycle. Or you can take your blood pressure, see it's high, still stay on cycle, get on some lisinopril and live. It's like you're still on cycle both ways. This way you just don't die. It's like...
Yeah, and that's what a coach is for too, like accountability. If you're not going to get your blood work to work with a coach, it's kind of like not tracking your calories and expect them to give you a meal plan. It's like, how am I supposed to help you if we don't know the data?
Yeah, and I'll work with someone without blood work. I've had people who just refuse, but it just makes it easier on a coach. It makes it easier on you too. It's just having that if you can start your main off season feeling like, oh fuck, I can do anything. I'm good. I can hammer my cycle. That's a good feeling. Those are the good off seasons.
Yeah, those stress hormones from not knowing too, those linger. Because you sit there at night with anxiety thinking about, man, I wonder what my blood pressure, maybe you should just check and get it over with.
Yeah, get it over with. And it's so easy to treat. And then like lisinopril, I don't know if ARBs, like helmsartan, I'm not sure if the pathway is a little bit different, but lisinopril, you can even find research studies where they track the IGF-1 production from it. It increases IGF-1. Probably not much, but like, you can live and get more IGF-1. Why is it hard for us to get on this boat?
At least make the argument that there's potential there, right?
Yeah. Lisinopril is a growth hormone replacement. There you go.
So, I guess getting into the off season with someone, first of all, when you go into the health phase, I think hold back the high days from like 2 to 1. Is that right?
Yeah, I usually just keep it like kind of the stock would be whether you're at 2 or some people like you'll get to 3 high days. We just drop to 1, and that's kind of the only change we'll make. And sometimes, like for you, I probably won't even change the first week. I'll wait and see if you get watery and then change. But a safe bet is just drop to 1 high day. We're probably not training quite as hard. We don't have as many androgens. And we know that diet was probably hypercaloric because we were trying to get big. So let's pull it back so we don't just add fat for no reason. But that's really all it is.
Now, when it comes to increasing calories, whether it be during a rebound or an off season, I know you're somebody who likes to push food pretty hard. So are you basically just trying to push food as hard as you can without the person getting fat? Or are you also factoring in the person's digestion and appetite? Like, how is it that you go about deciding when it's time to make a food increase?
Yeah, I take everything into consideration, but I think the easiest thing, I always try to go back to be able to go from first principles with everything I do. If you can't build it from the ground, then you don't really understand it. And that's usually where you get the best answers. So I thought like, how do we grow? Like there's still a debate, like actually what training precisely causes muscle protein synthesis? What do we need with the diet? And so I'll say, well, let's go to the simplest form, thermodynamics. If we eat more calories than we burn, those calories will get stored. Yes, but we don't want them stored as fat. We do want them stored as muscle and glycogen. So basically what I just boil it down to as simple as we do 2 things. That's it. That's everything's built around 2 things. You go to the gym and train with some type of trackable metric that you can use to prove that you've made progress. That's why I like progressive overload. It doesn't have to be that, but there needs to be something where you need to be able to tell me, are you better in the gym than you were 3 months ago? And can you prove it? If you can, then your job's taken care of. You're getting better in the gym. Then what I do is then we try to get more and more good, clean food in you, provided that we're not adding body fat unnecessarily. And so like you break it down, it's like so simple. If you're start the off-season eating this much food and doing this in the gym, and you end the off-season eating this much food and doing this in the gym, if you got stronger and are eating more and you haven't added body fat, the only possible thing is that you've added muscle. And so I just started from that, and that's the goal. It's all, basically every check-in the off-season starts with, does it seem like we can add calories without unnecessary body fat gain? And then that'll go into, can he actually get the calories in? Can he eat anymore? Is he sick of eating? Are we gaining fat already? Do we have room to add calories? You know, like are we already at 3 high days and we're only 2 weeks into the off season and I got to find a way to manage this guy for 5 months, you know, his appetite's going to be, but that's basically all I do. Look at the pics. Are you fatter than last week? Do you look like you're gaining size? Can we add more calories without getting fatter? And then you go and get better in the gym. And if we both do that, it's so simple and it's magic.
If you're getting stronger and you're eating more food, the only outcome is basically that you're building muscle as long as you're not fat, right?
And that came from, I remember in a magazine like 30 years ago or something. And it's not a perfect analogy, but it piqued my interest. Someone said something about, they were asking about triceps and French press and all this stuff. And the guy said, you know what? If you want big triceps, start doing dips. When you're doing 10 sets of 20 with 100 pounds strapped to your waist, you're going to have big triceps whether you want them or not. Which is, you know, like that's probably not the most efficient way to get big triceps, but it's absolutely true. If you're doing sets of 20 with 100 pounds strapped to your waist, you're going to have big triceps. You could want small triceps. It ain't going to happen. And so that's what I try to do. What can't not work?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. You have all these guys that say deadlifts aren't good. And it's like, maybe they're not the optimal movement when it comes to stimulus to fatigue ratio and things like that. Never seen anybody who deadlifts 800 pounds that has a small back.
Exactly. Find anyone with weak traps who's pulling 850.
Yep. I know we're coming up on an hour and I want to respect your time. So I had like a couple last things we could just breeze through. Now, let's say you've gone through a full off season with someone, you've gone through a health phase, all the blood work is good, and you're about 20 weeks out from a show. I know you're somebody who doesn't like to really push preps more than 16 weeks from what you've told me. So you've got these extra 4 weeks leading up to the prep before the show. Now, I know there are some different strategies in terms of the pre-prep phase. Some coaches like to do an aggressive fat loss approach before the prep actually starts. Other coaches like to build the metabolism up in order to have higher food intake before you go into a prep so you can diet on higher food. What exactly is your approach here? Do you like to do the aggressive fat loss approach, or are you more of a build up the metabolism guy?
I don't like it because there's muscle growth and fat loss are both slow processes. There's no way to cheat those systems. The rebound is a little bit different because we're not cheating muscle growth, we're cheating sarcoplasmic fullness. But all you're doing, if you try to burn fat early in a diet, yes, your metabolism's high. Yes, you're going from eating junk, and so any calorie drop's a big drop. And yes, you'll lose a lot of fat, but you're walking on you have two paths converging where you have metabolism and your appetite and your body fat level. And so you just don't get any benefit because even if you kill it for, a month before prep, which is stupid because then you're starting prep, and you burn like 4 pounds of fat. You start prep with a really suppressed metabolism, elevated hunger hormones, reduced glycogen. So if anything, I like to really eat food. But more over the last few years, I've kind of gone that I'm coaching a human, not a robot thing. I like eating a lot of food and really pushing carbs because then we know we have if we start prep super glycogen saturated, we have the longest time possible before we're over depleted, before we have to worry about that. But I also like the idea of you being sick of food, being like, I don't want to eat another bite. And that's not going to last all prep. But if we can get that to kind of even last through the first month of prep before you start getting, man, this sucks eating so little. So that's kind of why I do it. But I'll do, some guys I'll do, if I know they have families, I'll just give them like kind of a free week, or I'll kind of imply we're still on plan, but for the next 4 months you're locked in. So if you need to do something with your wife, your kids, get it out of the way this week. So it's really person dependent. But if I'm nutrition wise, if I'm doing anything, it's high calorie.
Yeah, and that ties into exactly what I said, how I didn't take meal until I was like 6 to 8 weeks out because I was still sick. I was waiting for the hunger to come. Like halfway through prep, I was like, it's a little bit of hunger, but I just never really got there until I was to the show, which was nice.
Yeah, yeah, and that's proper bodybuilding, because improper bodybuilding it sucks, because if you're in prep where you're starving by like 12 weeks out, that's a miserable life, because then also your hunger hormones are so outrageous. Those are the type of people who get fat right after the show, and then you're spending the whole off season trying not to get fat. So even in the off season, you're hungry, and you can just it's like. It just as a general rule in life, the best future life almost always comes from doing the thing that's slightly not enjoyable right now. Like just those little things, or it doesn't quite seem perfect right now. It's like, I don't know, like when you're in high school or something, you want to go out and party, or college, you want to go out and party. You don't want to stay in and study, But if if you want to keep progressing through life, you got to do the hard things. And eventually you get to a point where the hard things are still hard compared to what you could be doing, but you're doing those in bodybuilding terms. You're doing those hard things aren't as hard anymore. The hard things are now you're 280 pounds lean. You never get fat. Prep's easier because, like you said, you don't get hungry until late in prep. You just kind of set yourself up for all that. That was a terrible lead-in with that analogy, but hopefully someone figured out what I was saying.
I'll add another analogy here as well. Saving money sucks, but it gives you more freedom in the future, and it gives you more ability to make more money off the money that you already have. So while it sucks in the moment, it's better for you in the future.
Yeah, it's like, it would have been easier in the off season to not, because we had you sick of food. It sucks, but being sick of food is a little bit better than being starving, because two weeks out of prep is pretty rough. And so the benefit then is that oh crap.
All right, man, we're over an hour here. I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything you want to talk about? You talked about Troponin IQ already. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I really just want to stress, Troponin IQ, the chat's great, and the way it's set up when you log in, it just takes you right to chat, so you can forget there's other things there. But there's a lot of free content. I'm finishing up another training program that I'll sell, but I'll give to free for Troponin IQ members. So just for the future, I'll always be coaching at Troponin Nutrition. We have the supplements are Troponin supplements, but Troponin IQ is, especially while I'm building it, to make sure it shows value, will always be your best value. Whether or not you make use of the chat, the amount of dollars you spend being a subscriber will, I'll be putting hundreds of dollars of free ebooks and things. Eventually, I think all my content will be there to users, because that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have one place where, like a central hub, and then I can just focus on doing cool stuff and writing books. And I want to do a certified Troponin nutrition specialist, like a coaching certification. And I can't get to that until I kind of organize everything. So if you want your best the best value for your money for the next 5-10 years, it's definitely going to be Troponin IQ. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Let me know if you post on Instagram, if you had us as a collaborator. My wife and daughter handle the Instagram, but they'll be in the DMs and they'll collaborate, whatever.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.